ignition switch and lock cylinder is what's causing this not to turn off with the key. So I'm going to take one of my extra steering column assemblies and replace this one. Normally there are captive nuts inside a metal body, but since this is not a metal body, there aren't captive nuts. They have these sort of captive nuts. They're like plates behind here. Thankfully, I would not want to reach up behind here. But speaking of which, here they are. Looks like they actually just cut the metal body away because this Jeep used to be green. So that's kind of neat. It also contains it would sit like this behind the dash, and it contains the windshield, I don't know what you would want to call this, knob thing. Survey says 7/16? 7/16. So this is the hole that the bolt was in, and I just slid a wrench in sideways and it just barely reached over there. I'm just leaving the wrench up there because the wrench has the nut in it. Might as well just leave it in there. This is the rat's nest that is the factory CJ7 wiring. I'm curious to know just how much of this HVAC stuff actually works. I'm gonna go clean this dash off first before I put it in here because it's all nasty and cobwebby and gross. On to the next order of business here. There's a plate that ties in the pedal assembly and steering column bracket here into the body so it doesn't shift up and down when you hit the brakes or hit the clutch or reef on the steering wheel when you're getting into the vehicle or turning corners like crazy with your manual steering like this Jeep has. And normally it would look something sort of not at all like this. It would be together and this piece wouldn't be bent up. But I forgot to make a video before I cut this piece all up. And it would fit in something like so. So I cut these pieces off and I made a little bit of a zigzag pattern here. You can see this is the one I bent up and it will fit up into here. And this is the straight one. So I'm gonna bolt these on. So this is it. It's a little ugly. Spencer's changing his trans fluid over there. Doing a great job. While I'm working on this. So that's what I'm talking about. It did stick straight out here, but then I just kind of made a relief cut there and a relief cut there, and same on that bracket there. Just kind of S-bent it, bolted it up, and testing the straightness of the threads there. Looks like a lot, huh? It's actually more simple than you might think. All these here are, all they are is just lights. They're actually all in series, parallel. The main thing you just gotta keep separate and maybe take a picture of it is like these down here, which are your voltmeter and your oil pressure gauge. Usually they don't work anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much. And the oil pressure gauge and a water temp gauge, I'll probably put in an aftermarket one like an autometer set or something like that. But for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. It looks terrible, but it's straightforward. I found out that the general illumination circuit is just this red/orange wiring here. So these are just general illumination bulbs over here on the voltmeter gauge and the oil pressure gauge. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind if you're taking your dash apart. That's what I'm talking about. These are very white, so that would probably be the illuminating lights that illuminate your gauge cluster itself. And then this one and this one that matches it over here is your turn signal indicator lights. And here it is in all its glory. I didn't say it was cleaner. I said it was nicer. All the knobs are there, and as far as I know they work, except that knob and that knob. It had a factory radio, look at that. Has everything you could ever want except for a glove box. So it's been about a week since we've worked on Conrad. Need to work on him more often so I can get to other projects. Like the one he ran into. On purpose.
Just a little bit.
Just a bit. Look at that beautifulness. That lovely new wiring. Oh.
It smells good.
It does smell good. This is not a paid advertisement. We're just lazy. So the nice thing is, even though this looks like a giant mess, and it kind of is scary when you first look at it, you start to notice things like this is bundled together. All this wiring here, it's got a zip tie here. So this all goes to a general area of the Jeep, and same as like this bundle here. So you can kind of lay it out with that in mind. And it doesn't hurt to have, of course, the instructions that come with it, and also the maintenance manual and all that jazz. So that is what we're going to be doing. We're going to lay this out and figure out where everything goes. So we got all this lovely mess of wires wrapped around the mirror. That's for the headlights right there. And that mess of wires that's sitting where the driver's seat should be are for the taillights. And everything for back there, probably the fuel gauge unit. We have the engine all wired up. We went to start it and it did nothing, which is kind of a step backwards if I would have to say. So I got the meter out, and apparently I'm just an idiot, because in my haste to get the engine done, I forgot a very important thing, to actually put the fuse that they supply into the fuse holder. That right there is the 150 amp fuse right there, that little black thing with the silver ears off of it. That's what it is. So all we had to do is do that, and then now it starts. And it shuts off with the key. Oh, it's amazing. Progress has been made. We got the fan shroud on. I don't know if we've seen that before in any other video, with, you know, the usual way you put a fan shroud on, which is a bungee cord. Trying to figure out a more permanent solution with that. Maybe JB Weld, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan of JB Weld overall, but some people like it, some people don't. That's just the way it's going to be. But if you recall all the mess of wires that were here before, all those crispy, crunchy tire fire wires, they're all gone. So we have the oil pressure sending unit wire going up there to the oil pressure sending sensor, and then the exciter wire for our coil, our 12 volt supply to the coil in the distributor, and of course your S terminal wire there, and the battery terminal wire here to your starter. Got all the alternator wired up here too. This is for the electric choke. I don't have a connector on the original harness because it was burned off, melted. Lots of things were melted off. This would be the electric choke solenoid here, and here's the blade, but it's not your usual generic electrical blade there, electrical connector blade. It's a little bit odd shaped. So I haven't figured out quite yet how we're gonna connect that, but it's gonna happen. Trying to make this look as clean as possible with nice routing here. Got the alternator wires up routed to here and pretty well protected. Here are all the wires, such as the air conditioning wires, and then there are a couple others, of course, too, but we'll figure out a better, clean way to tie those up and get them out of the elements and such. Yeah, I think the next order of business is maybe the headlights. The headlights would be nice to do.
supposed to work.
Taillights and under dash wiring. Eventually, yeah. But it does start currently, so it can be moved around. That doesn't have to be done immediately. There's not that much to do to get the column all done up. Just mainly turn signal and horn wires to put in a connector and then just plug and play essentially at that point. It'll be a bit of work to get the under dash stuff wired up, because that whole mess is under dash stuff. So I guess headlights, taillights, turn signals as it is. We just took the coiled up excess wires that we aren't going to be using currently, and we're tucking it through this grommet, which I also installed just a little bit ago. Spencer just coiled up the wires in the darkness here. Spencer coiled up the wires so it looks like a perfect place to put a rat's nest or a bird's nest. Yeah, we'll zip tie this all up and make it look kind of neat and orderly and such. The wind is real. The wind.